like to welcome you to this panel. We need the voice of the diaspora. So may I ask you, what is the voice of the diaspora? How do you reach them and how do you experience the voice of the diaspora? What is it?
I am, for example, I'm Zambian diaspora in the UK. I ran in an organization that I founded called Diaspora for African Development, and the point of that organization was for people like myself who were trapped before in the colonial shell shock of whether you couldn't do anything unless you were a doctor, lawyer, engineer. Yeah? I didn't think I could contribute anything until, it's a long story, but eventually I got to a point in the UK where I realized that actually I didn't have to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer to be able to give back home. So I'm the epitome of diaspora. So when you ask me about how can you reach diaspora, you need to be a bit more, you need to give it context. Is it in the context of the GFMD and in what we were talking about within civil society? Is it enterprise? Is it investment? Is it, remittances? So it is a very wide question, and that, for me, just is indicative of how diaspora is perceived, as one group.
I think I get you from the context of in line with the ongoing conversation on global compact. How do we then get the engagement of diaspora in policy negotiations? I think that is specific, that is unique, and that is practicable in the sense of it is deliverable. To engage, come into that, I appreciate that in most countries, just as she has said, there are some established networks of diaspora of different countries. I take, for instance, in Nigeria, have the Nigerian in Diaspora Network organization in different countries. So I think what we could be talking about here is, can we bring this conversation to those networks and emphasize the importance of their participation in it? If this global compact is to become what we expect it to be, how would they help in shaping the conversation? Would they be able to interact with their embassies where they are? Or would they be able, through their own direct investment engagement in their own countries of origin, influence the conversation on the grassroots in such a way that they could bring their own text to the conversation around their local countries of origin, and then also influence the countries of destination. So I think, in a nutshell, the way of beginning it is to identify established or existing networks of diaspora and introduce the conversation within those networks and emphasize the need for us to be engaged in it.
Can I follow up on that?
Yes.
So that is, my brother is speaking from the context of Nigeria with 150 million people and established diaspora, yeah? I'm speaking from the context of Zambia, a country of 15 million people with less than 300,000 in the diaspora, yeah? So we don't have a diaspora policy. It's being formulated now. And that, so from my perspective, before I can even take this big chunk of, communication into that kind of space, I need to have an enabling environment that will allow me or allow the advocates to actually engage the diaspora.
Because the voice of the diaspora, is it towards the home country, so to influence your national policy? Or is it towards the host country?
I think it's both. I think it is not either or. It shouldn't be so, because the diaspora is a very unique existence where they have a take in both places. And if that is the case, they should be involved in both places, both in the countries of destination or host countries, as you may call them, and the countries of origin. And this is where I think what I am highlighting here is had to be taken care of. First, like your agency or your network should seek for those avenues through which you could get the diasporas themselves involved, not for us to think for the diasporas what they should be thinking. Because most times we kind of think for others, and then what comes out of that thinking becomes of our own projection. This is what you people should be doing, and this is how it should be in your own countries. Okay, for instance, we are talking about networking, going back to what she has said. How do we now establish or strengthen existing groups so that they can form a synergy through their networks? Could there be a place, or could there be opportunity where the Swiss platform of civil society on migration and development would also create links of networking with other migration agencies and networks in different countries, both countries of destination and countries of origin? In that way, this conversation will crisscross in a way that they become meaningful.
The diaspora, they need proper engagement and then put a little bit pressure on the home country, because for every country they have their foreign policy. And this has always been the issue between civil society and government. Several years ago, I attended a program in Geneva, and it was titled Bridging the Gap Between Action and Policy. Now, when a policy is formulated, the civil society is on the side of action. Like this program now, Time for Action. And if nothing is done, we will do time for action in the next 10 years, because we are not the one that formulate the policy. So in this case, the diaspora can get back to their country through the Foreign Affairs Ministry and then put pressure on what they want. And then there can be inputs. Then it becomes government to government. Because sometimes when you attend some meetings and you want to raise some points, they are quick to tell you that it's a government to government affairs. And at that point, no matter your opinion, what they are telling you indirectly is that your opinion on this case does not count. And then in where I come from, it is a bit easier sometimes for the diaspora to put pressure on the home country than the civil society in the country.
I've listened to both, and not to be the pessimist, but I'm coming from a situation where in the UK we've had ample opportunity to influence policy. We've been part of the national campaigns, we've been part of, so I know that one of the strong enablers of diaspora is if the country that they're being hosted in has policies or structures and institutions that allows them to diaspora. Yeah? The reverse is also true. If your country government has a foreign ministry that has diaspora department or structures, then you can put pressure, because you will find the person to call, you will find the forums to engage. But if you are engaging with a government that does not have those structures in, you have to be creative. So one of the things that we do is, one, attend events like this. We get leverage. You're part of the conversation, you learn from other people, and because I'm here, I was able to contact my government and say, we'll be at GFMD, you're coming on open space, can we meet? So you get creative like that. So you have to make the sell. I can sit down and we can take the message here is very global, very wide, translate them into country-specific dialogue. Now that's a start. Yeah, with the diaspora themselves, we as Diaspora for African Development have been engaging the government for the last, and this is like, practical stuff that we're doing for the last 3, 4, 5 years. We finally got to a point where the Zambian government have actually agreed to dual citizenship. As of last year, they're just waiting to pass, the bill. And I actually got invited last year to the first Diaspora Indaba, the first diaspora conference, to open it with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, which was a massive acknowledgement from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when you had to go and ask who had the diaspora file, because there was nobody looking after the diaspora. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I understand the context, but if you ask those questions and try and have a conversation and expect the same answers, it's not the same. Every diaspora civil society person here has a different context in which they are operating in. And one of the gaps that we have is that we don't have a very good relationship with our own, as diaspora development organizations, we don't have a very good relationship with our development organizations, NGOs on the ground. But if they don't see the point of engaging you, why are they going to engage you? The onus lies on us. So your question is here. We're dealing with situations like right here. We need to establish that foundation, and spaces like this help. These give us guidelines. Now I know what I'm taking, what I'm channeling, whether I translate it from Y to B, at least even at the B, it is linked.
Thank you very much.